Horror was never just a genre for me. It was a contradiction, a guilty pleasure, something I wasn't supposed to love, but I did. I grew up in a strict Roman Catholic household. Church wasn't optional, it was a way of life. Every Sunday morning while my family prayed for salvation, I found myself drawn to something darker, something forbidden. I still remember the first time I watched a horror movie. I was 7. My cousins put on Drag Me to Hell, and from the moment it started, I felt like I was breaking some unspoken rule. I was terrified, completely frozen, and yet I couldn't look away. That night, I refused to sleep alone. Every shadow in my room and creak in the house felt alive. I was convinced that even if I closed my eyes, something would reach for me.
I see dead people.
The fear was overwhelming, but so was my curiosity. Why did this scare me so much? Why did I want to understand it? And why did I kind of enjoy it? And that's when I knew. Horror wasn't just something to be afraid of, it was something I needed to understand. Fear isn't just something that happens to you, it's something you carry. I've always struggled with anxiety, the feeling that something is just around the corner, that the worst is about to happen, even when nothing is wrong.
We're all going to die!
But horror gave me a way to control it, to take that fear, that constant dread, and put it somewhere else. In a movie, a monster, something I could turn off when it got too overwhelming. But as I got older, I realized something. Horror wasn't just about scaring me, it was about making me ask the questions I was never supposed to ask. The more I watched, the more those questions kept coming. Questions about faith, about fear, about everything I was told to never doubt. Growing up, I was told that faith was supposed to protect me, that belief made you safe.
The power of Christ compels you! That the power of Christ compels you!
But horror? Horror taught me something else. It taught me to question. That's why anti-religious horror fascinated me. The Exorcist, The Witch, Saint Maud. These weren't just stories about possession and the devil. They were stories about control, and what happens when faith isn't enough. Or worse, when faith itself is the horror.
But I want you to choose which door to go through based on your faith.
And then I found Heretic, a film that didn't only challenge faith, it dismantled it. It wasn't just horror, it was a revelation, like seeing something I had always felt, but never put into words. I'd spent my whole life feeling like an outsider, and then I realized horror had been telling my story all along. I had spent years thinking about how horror was only about fear or being scared, but maybe it was never about fear at all. The more I watched, the more I understood. Horror isn't just about monsters, ghosts, and demons. It's about outsiders, the ones who don't fit in, the ones who survive in ways they weren't supposed to. And at some point I realized I was one of them. Maybe that's why so many queer people connect with horror. Because we know what it's like to be feared, to be misunderstood, to have people look at us and see something they don't want to understand. Horror was never just about fear. It's about survival. It's about transformation. It's about breaking free from the things that try to control you. I didn't love horror because it scared me. I loved it because it showed me I wasn't alone. For some people, horror has and always will be about fear. But for me, horror's the one thing that's always made me feel free.